we're finishing this book called The Wisdom Jesus. Cynthia Bourgeault wrote it, and I think part of why she wrote it was for today's conversation. Because essentially, I think every Christian who's really had to think about it, I assume, had to deal with this one question. What the heck was going on when a perfect man like Jesus walks into Jerusalem and gets killed on purpose? What the heck was that about? So let's talk about incarnation in general. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. This is the creative process. And it means the creative process. It means the becoming and the being at the same time. It means more than just the Word, obviously. But it is essentially this aspect of the divine which creates. It's always in creation of creating itself into something. And in this creating in itself into something, in this sphere that we live in, it's a dualistic sphere. Good and evil, light and dark, hot and cold, yours and mine. It's in that sphere. And so as it's in that sphere, it recognizes that it has two things to do. One is to live in a world of duality. To live in a world where you accomplish things, where you push against and you're pushed against. Where you try and you fail and you try and you succeed. It lives in that world. The doing world, the dualistic world. But at the same time, that consciousness that is undifferentiated from the one consciousness lives in being, simply awareness, being, presencing. And in each of us, there is the doing aspect, the part of us that functions in duality, that has ambitions and has effort and has success and failure. That part. And then there's the other part that sits always on a lotus blossom, always like a bird on a branch, watching. It sits and waits and understands and is the presence, the stillness, but the knowing at the same time. And this is Cynthia's answer to the question of what the heck was the crucifixion about? When Jesus comes along, he comes along and he's doing both of those things at the same time. I'm putting words in her mouth. Think of it this way. There is an element within each of us that destroys the barriers of the dual, of the other and self, and that can hold in it the tension of evil and good, light and shadow, yours and mine. This thing in creation that we have, and all of us have it, is love. And it is love without grasping. It is love without ownership. It is love without result needing to be anything. It is simply loving. Jesus comes as the great example of the resolving type of love. The one that can come here and can love both the good and the evil, both the Pharisee and the sinner, both the male and the female, both the high and the low, both the Roman and the Jew. He can be the one who's in the middle, who can hold a space for all of it, who can say to everyone, I and you are one. This is the love that doesn't distinguish between people, that doesn't know you as separate, knows you as loved to the level at which there is recognition not of this dual side only, but of the presence. And it loves from the presence to the presence and merges the two together. So that we, when we love like that, we love in such a way that we don't have enemies, that we could actually love our enemies, that we could be the one who holds the world's problems in our heart without being broken and without needing to fix it. We are the vessel that can contain all of this, including the shadow and the light, including the good and the bad, the worthy and the unworthy. This is the presence that comes in the form of Jesus. What better way to resolve the duality than to embody it? To live in the pain and the suffering that everybody is going through, and yet not give into the duality. To be the vessel that holds the opposites. I want to live and I'm going to die. I like pleasure and I'm experiencing pain. Jesus comes, throws himself, the master of creation at this point. He can make wine out of water. He can walk on water if he wants to. He brings himself to the place of complete surrender to the outer world. And what makes his journey redemptive is that he holds a place of love and acceptance even as he does it. Can I be the one who, in the face of all loss, is willing to hold my heart open and to be in acceptance? To say internally and externally, not my will, but thy will be done. Not my needing it to be my way, but let us just see if this game can play out so I can be both in it and above it. In the world and yet not actually of it. To be in duality and to also be the presence at the same time, fully realized, both suffering and transcendent. And that's why we have the attention to Jesus now. Because while we are all part of that one presence, one power, he was able to resolve the conflict of the dual world. And in so doing, he also merged this particularity with the one presence. And so, according to theological and mythological understanding of what happened, he becomes the Christ universal, where his consciousness is to be found everywhere. If you will empty out your need for it to be a particular way and practice the presence and practice loving, then you will be like Jesus. And being like Jesus, you will begin to transcend your circumstances.